And please remember this, not just this and wondering where it comes from, why it is getting, anyway it's not equal. I'm not saying I is equal to IF. I'm simply saying that any difference between I and IF has to have a corresponding picture on the forward premium on the currency. Okay? So if you're looking at Germany as home and America as foreign, the forward premium on the Deutschmark will have to, in some sense, counterbalance the interest rate differential between Germany and America. Is what we are saying out here. I just come out some numbers into the answer. Okay. So basically, how to look at the interest parity condition? Don't look at it simply as a statement that said interest rates across the world are going to get equalized. Rather, look at it in the following way. Interest rate differentials, which are actually perceived as real interest rate differentials, so there are positive arbitrage gains to be made, they will be taken up, because of which there are going to be certain fairly predictable directions of movement in forward versus spot rates of price. Okay, that would be the correct way in which I ask you to take this particular condition. Okay, now the interest parity condition actually comes in two flavors. Just like you have all kinds of people, some who are very risk averse like me, I always go for a hedged transaction. Whereas there are others who have a risk appetite. Okay, so who might worry that, if I hedge and the spot rate in the future moves in a way which runs counter to my hedging strategy, I might take a loss. Or I might, just miss out on that extra bit of money. Alright? So if I have that kind of risk appetite, then rather than taking this kind of a decision where you're sealing your fate today, as you say, by signing a forward contract, you might just take a bet. Alright? So in that case, the operative implication for movements in currencies and interest rates, etc., would be captured by what's known as the uncovered interest parity condition, which in some sense is a more general case, because I can show the covered parity to be a special case of the uncovered parity condition. Okay. Indian bond, okay, which gives me 1 plus I. So if I have a P and I put it in this bond, it gives me 1 plus I, versus if I were to, which is the P, if I were to buy a foreign bond, okay, and then simply take a chance on the future spot rate. The spot rate being the maturity rate. Okay, simply take a chance on this. So this is basically my expected value of what the spot rate is going to be at the time I convert the bond back. Alright, and compare the two. Again, arbitrage opportunities would be taken up, ensuring that the two returns would be equalized. Because in a derivative, because capital flows are unrestricted, you simply have capital movements, okay, into a high interest economy, so that you have a capital outflow from the high interest economy at maturity, which would in turn give you certain clear-cut results regarding the direction in which the rates are expected to move in the future. Okay, and fulfillment of this condition is but naturally.
Ma'am, this is portrait on the way in the future a lot of
Absolutely.
that cannot be known completely.
No, because it's a risky strategy. It's a risky strategy. So, but I have to make a decision today. So what this captures is, this is just your regular expectation. You've done statistics, right? You know what the expected value for random variables. So you see you just spotted it is your random variable. It can take different values with different probabilities and you simply have a guess about it, which is the expected value. So clearly, this is for people who care about that risk. Okay?
But here, the implicit assumption is that this value would be equal to the portrait in the future.
No, just look at what's turning out to be. Just look at what's turning out to be. So I use exactly the same kind of statistics here and write this out as the same kind of stuff, but just look at what this is now. What is this? Suppose this is positive. What does this term represent if it's positive? It's the expected depreciation of the rupee. Alright, so I could actually call this similar kind of ignoring the cross product term, because again the expected depreciation is a rate and multiplied by a rate would be a very small number, would give me So now look at what this is telling you. What is the straight cut indication of your uncovered interest rate parity? If this is positive, then what has to happen to your currency? So very standard sort of an example, which I'm sure you have encountered at some point. Look at Brazil versus America. Okay? So you may find Brazilian bonds. Now here I'm talking about Brazil for crisis using financial currency. Okay? So a very high interest differential between Brazil and America may actually represent compensation for a possible loss to investors due to an expected devaluation or depreciation of the Brazilian currency. Okay? So this reads much more where you expect inflation for the two countries to be very different. So to equalize real returns, one country actually, the one where inflation is higher, actually has to compensate by offering a higher nominal rate. Okay? I don't know if you've encountered the East Asian experience with the financial crisis as part of some course. Okay, so that's actually a whole story, and to read the reading that I suggested, chapter 3 in particular, chapter 3 of Moving and Battles, kind of makes East Asia a case study as it demonstrates all these analytical concepts. To read it as it is quite supportive from that point of view. But one of the first reactions of the East Asian government in the face of Okay, so the first reaction was actually to raise interest rates. Precisely this sort of a situation. Okay, interest rates have to be hiked to simply maintain real returns for international investors and prevent a capital outflow. Okay, now of course if you couldn't maintain this interest differential forever, because remember interest rates hikes come at a cost. If you keep on hiking interest rates, your domestic economy is going to slip into a recession, so you can't do it forever. Then you simply have to give in to the expectation of a depreciation and make it clear. Okay? So again, what is driving this is pure arbitrage. Okay? Now, what I'm just going to show you are two examples based on this, but just let me take this one step forward in what I call the implications of our interest parity condition, and then I can just launch the example straight away. So is this clear? Just jot these two interest parity conditions down. Now, what do I do about my nominal interest rate from, the previous lecture? We know that the nominal interest rate actually is composed of two parts, the real rate and expected inflation, from where you get the relation that the real rate is nothing but the nominal rate adjusted for inflation. Now I can plug this in. So yeah. So basically, you see, I hope the reason I talked about this in the first place becomes clear. So we incorporate what we learned about the relation between interest rates and inflation to see how all of these things are actually related. Okay? So what you see here is, therefore, now I can write that for the domestic economy and for the foreign economy, because that's a generic condition. And if you're wondering, to those of you who weren't there last time from where you got it from, just look at chapter 1 including the ambassadors, which tells you that if as an investor you care about your returns, and that's what drives you to invest in bonds with a particular interest rate, then this is a logical outcome of that. Okay. So then I can plug that in and show this. Now I can talk about what you were okay. How do we look at interest rate differentials? Are they simply a compensation for differential rates of inflation, or do they actually represent true gains to be made from differences in real returns? So let's take that as two different cases. So suppose the real returns in the home and foreign country are actually the same, so that the interest rate differential that you observe is actually due to an interest rate differential. In that case, it's due to an inflation differential. In that case, if you're running higher inflation than the foreign economy, what can you say about there's a depreciation that's expected? Okay. Now, if this is the situation, alright, that in some sense this is what's happening, then the way this is changing and the way your spot rate is changing ahead, okay, that's what this means, which way the currency heads for. Okay, then what you're actually looking at is some kind of purchasing power parity holding something. Okay, so if this is holding as a regularity for certain countries, you could see that purchasing power parity for those countries actually is getting satisfied. This is exactly what purchasing power parity tells you. So the real exchange rate is going to be some sort of a constant. If the exchange rate movements and relative price movements compensate for each other. And the basic point here is, in this case, an interest differential of this kind could simply be compensated by an expected depreciation, because the interest rate differential here actually represents an inflation differential rather than a differential real rate. Okay? So here, I'm really moving in line with what the uncovered interest parity condition says. Okay? So Brazil, USA, if there is a high rate on the Brazilian bonds, usually US, you know that this is it's just compensating for expected depreciation of the Brazilian currency. Okay. Alright. However, let's look at another case. Suppose expected inflation in the two cases are the same. But expected inflation in the contract. Okay. Now, in this case, what would a high interest rate of this kind, what would this represent? And what would that lead you to do? That would actually lead to? And what would that do to the currency? Exact opposite of what the UITC was telling. Yeah? So in the earlier case, you had a positive interest rate differential between the home and foreign country simply being a necessity dictated by the differential rates of inflation, higher inflation in the domestic country. But if that's not the case, and if you have two countries which are roughly comparable so far as inflation is concerned, then a higher nominal rate has to be reflected in higher real rate. And that will simply call for capital inflows into the country with higher real rate, leading to an appreciation of the domestic currency.
But the question would again the interest question.
Yeah. Yes, sir. No, so the that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. The exact opposite of the uncovered induced parity condition in that case.
Here, electrify is going to be greater than 0. So it will depreciate.
So where are you getting this from? So in this case, the UIDC does not follow. What does follow at every period in time is your covered interest parity condition. Okay, so the forward rates move in such a way so that the covered parity condition always holds. So the bottom line here is, whenever there is an interest differential, don't take this as an indication of verification. Okay, what you have to do is to kind of dig deeper and see what is driving that. Okay, and the uncovered parity condition works well for countries that are actually as disparate in terms of inflation rate as, let's say, Brazil and developed and developing countries. But if you look at major, Japan, America, Germany, if you look at industrialized countries with roughly comparable fundamentals, their real differences in interest rates actually, with unrestricted flows, we should remember that. With unrestricted flows, would actually lead to currency appreciation in the country which has a higher rate. Okay. In other words, this is another way of showing you how international capital flows would act like a sort of disciplining device in monetary policy. You have to have aligned monetary policies and not be doing things. If you're like countries, you do like things so far as your monetary policy is concerned. Okay. Now let me show you some of these